Hey guys, I'm Will. Today, we're gonna be working on the scoop draw. Let's go. Anyway, let's get serious. So let's talk about why we would want to choose the scoop draw in the first place. Now, most of this is going to be geared towards a competition rig and the competition mindset, but with training and a little bit of understanding of your equipment, you can do the same or similar draw with your duty rig or retention holster. For me, when I can get away with it, I want to do the scoop draw because it takes away a little bit of the effort, all the effort I have to put into my hand for being aggressive to get the gun out. It kind of shaves that for me because it's one fluid motion coming out of the holster. And when done correctly, it can be very fluid. So I don't have to shoot faster, move faster, do anything faster to be done with this course of fire sooner. A scoop draw itself can shave a lot of time. For some guys, it could be like 0.2 or 0.2 or 0.3 of a second shaved like that. All right, so we're gonna talk about holster setups and how to game it towards the scoop draw and kind of be a benefit to reduce any of the friction we may have on a normal holster setup. So for me, I have my holster pretty far forward from my hip. So if this is my hip bone, the gun is about 2 to 3 inches ahead of that, if you look at it on the pants. And then I have a negative cant, meaning the back of the actual grip is tilted down to where if I was to take my hands and drop them at my side, if I was to bring my hand up, you'll notice that my bird finger is running right up along the base of that actual holster. And the next thing on the holster itself, when it's competition, obviously for duty, we're gonna have retention, it's gonna be a little bit more snug, there's more considerations there. But for this particular case, my holster is acting almost like a snug or a fit bucket to where it's got a little bit of snap to it, but for the most part, the gun can come right out. I can run and it not bounce out, but it's just enough friction to where it's gonna retain it as I snatch the gun out of it. That's a really important thing, to not just think, okay, it's got to be able to click in and be tight. We don't want that kind of tension if it's for a scoop draw or a competition. We want that thing fairly loose to where I can bring that gun out whenever I want without having to fight the holster. Some other key features on the overt holsters. So the front of the holster is cut very, very low in front of the ejection port, so that when you start to draw the gun or scoop it, that front or the muzzle is flying out of there as soon as possible. And one feature that really accents the scoop draw is on the back of the overt holsters, there's absolutely no material built up in any way between your hand and the undercut of your trigger guard. It is all completely open for that hand to attack and scoop that gun as fast as possible. We did that on purpose. They're tailor-made for this type of draw. They're tailor-made for competition and for speed. But there's a whole nother video on the overt features themselves. Go watch that. Let's get back to learning how to scoop really quick. So one of the important things for me with the scoop draw is understanding where your gun is. So we don't have a subconscious point. Again, this gun isn't connected to us. It doesn't have nerve endings. So it's kind of technically floating off of our body. We have to memorize by at least an index or a placement where the gun is going to be so we're more consistent. For me, what I'll do is I'll actually grab my front mag and my gun, and then I'll feel it. For me, what I like to do is when I can, my forearm, once I've felt the gun, my forearm is going to kind of rest on the back of the gun. That gives me an index point to know at least right before I bring my body off of the gun for there's no contact, I have a kind of a last known spot. That allows me to, when the timer goes off or we begin the course of fire, to start bringing this hand into that trigger guard. Again, because my holster is clear of any material, I can slide and smash right into that gun and immediately begin the process of the scoop itself. That's the below waist position. We'll start with hands above shoulders or hands above head in just a little bit and talk about that. Okay, so now let's talk about gaming the hand position. Again, this is my preference. This isn't the only way to do the scoop. There's a ton of great videos, but this is just my weird process for getting a scoop efficient for me and utilizing this hand, if you have big hands especially, on getting that gun out of the holster sooner and more efficiently. So for me, what I prefer, especially because I run limited optics and open division quite a bit, which are 2011s or hammer fired guns. We have a big beaver tail back here, and that can sometimes for guys be cumbersome where they end up trying to scoop the gun out and end up getting hung up because of their position of their hand, which is why my holster set up the way it is and now why my hand begins the way it does. Now from this position, you'll notice my hand is doing this. It's almost like it's cocking outward like that. What that's doing is giving me a lot of space here and keeping my thumb up and out of the way, but giving me just enough like a hook so that when I come up to attack the gun, right when those fingertips grab the gun or make contact with the trigger guard, they're going to simply start to squeeze. And if you watch the gun, as I start to squeeze, it's actually lifting it out of the holster. As my arm is coming up, they are squeezing. That's pulling the gun out of the holster with me as I'm pulling the gun up. And also you'll notice as I do that, my hand is acting like a hook. As I come up, you'll notice that as I squeeze, my thumb and the rest of my hand is going over that beaver tail, and it's also giving me a perfect index every time. Now the important thing with the scoop is if we're going to take advantage of the speed out of the holster to the eyes, we need to make sure the support hand builds the grip as soon as possible. That's key. It's all a waste of time if we're jumping out of that holster as fast as possible and the grip isn't built until right here. A lot of times you'll see guys draw the gun and come out and the grip hasn't been built until they get to this position. All of that is now a complete waste. We have no benefit because now that last final percentage before the dot interrupts the eyes, we're still forming the grip, and that tension can also move your natural index of where the dot's going to appear in the window. Let's get rid of that. So for me, these hands are acting together to the same goal. The goal is get to the gun as soon as possible. If I could, I would build my grip in the holster, but I can't physically do that. So the sooner I can get this hand to interrupt my grip and interrupt that gun and start to build, I'm going to do it. So think of it this way. If I am trying to train my hands moving in unison, get your par timer, set a par time, or just have it beep for you to attack that pronunciation of that B, and work on getting your hands to go to that one spot as soon as possible. Right as that gun starts to clear the holster, the moment it's starting to move its way up and be an escalator to my eyes, my support hand is interrupting this spot and building to where basically my ideal goal would be my grip is built underneath my dominant eye right here to where if I look down, I have the grip that I could just shoot a bill drill perfectly into the ground. No matter where in this process of delivering the dot to my eyes, it is completely balanced. Grip is built to support my vision. I can start sending it the moment that dot has interrupted the aiming scheme I've chosen. Once you've got that process and your grip is built, well, how do we get it to our eyes to interrupt where our vision is focused? Well, I prefer not to have the gun come up like an elevator and then press out onto the floor. I feel like that's kind of wasted motion. What I prefer is what we kind of goofily call a escalator or a toilet seat being brought up. It's just basically on a hinge, flipping up and down directly underneath the eyes coming up. That's all I want. So if I can just have that nice efficient motion, all I'm going to do is build my grip and then bring it up to my eyes to interrupt where my vision's focused. So we're going to work on the escalator. Now you're just going to apply everything together. No numeric value, no step 1 through 4. It is a fluid motion from the holster to the eyes. That's all we're trying to do. Okay, let's grab our timer, make sure it's set up. Let's get a sticker on the wall and we'll get started. All right, let's do that a little bit slower so we can see it. I'm going to run the whole process. Timer goes off. My hand, again, is in this position. Once those hooks touch the bottom of the gun, it squeezes, which brings my thumb over. Safety is disengaged. My support hand interrupts as soon as possible. Grip is built. It comes up to the eyes, and then I can begin shooting. For the boys on YouTube, gotcha. Now we're going to talk about a couple different hand positions. Like if the competition calls for hands below waist, well, now we know where the hands are going to be and how to index that. Now let's talk about hands above shoulders, hands above head. Okay, so for now, what if my hands are hands above shoulders? So if I'm in this position, well, why wouldn't I just want to smash down on the gun? Well, if you notice, until I have a guaranteed subconscious point, I can't land in the same spot every single time. So something I choose to do, it doesn't have to be your way, but see if it helps you. For me, when I am doing a draw with hands above shoulders, I am actually taking my arm and dropping it like this. I'm still slinging back behind the gun and emulating a scoop draw. What it's doing is taking my bird finger, the one time we're going to use it for the good reasons, it's going to come down and slam behind that holster and grab just like it would. It's just a modified starting position. Instead of starting from the bottom, it's slinging down and grabbing the gun just like that. I am not trying to pluck down and pull it up. Elbow is more like swinging down to the gun. Hands above head are the same thing. It's going to be the same exact position. I'm just doing this a little bit faster. I'm getting from point A to point B as soon as I can. That bird finger is then going to come into play when it comes to steering my hand in the right position. When it comes to hands on a wall or whatever weird call, you may have to go back to a simple snatch. So where we're actually sliding up the back of the holster, landing on the gun and bringing it up. It may not always be a benefit to scoop, but when you can, take advantage of the free speed from holster to eyes you can take advantage of. And we'll rep it until we're fatigued, take a break, drink a Ghost, eat some steak, come right back to it and grow again. Let's look at that a little bit slower. So I'm dropping the hands down. Here we go. As they drop down, this hand is sliding, the bird finger sliding behind the gun, getting me a nice high index. The gun comes out the same exact way. The grip is built the same exact way. The only difference is my hand is getting to that gun in a very unique manner for the bird finger to get behind it. I'm using this as an index rail going against the actual holster itself. I really want to stress the importance of the hand position and the index point where you land on the scoop. There's a lot of great methods out there. Just the one that helps me is making sure my bird finger is landing aggressively into that undercut of the trigger guard. I can use that to slide up the actual holster or right into the back of that, depending on my hand position where I am allowed to start. The second thing that's very important is this little hook that I'm creating with my hand is really that trigger for once there's contact, I close the gap. That alone, if you can get this real quick, if you can get this, right when that hook touches that gun, I close the gap and that brings my thumb to the right spot. It brings that hand around the gun in a position that won't snag and will guarantee a high purchase every single time on the gun. Eventually, it'll just be like that. Well, I hope you guys had a good time on this video. If you have any questions regarding the process, it's at Stuffs and Pews on Instagram. Or if it's equipment related, which you should probably talk about anyway, it is at TXC Holsters on Instagram. Now, back to the scoop and me gaining weight.